We can hear you, Matthew.
Yeah, so
Yes,
we'll meet again in about 40 minutes for questions and answers.
Recording in progress.
And then we'll take it on from there. So for the medical doctors who are in attendance and dentists, we request that you sign in with the registration form, leave us your board license number so that we can process CPD points for you. And then, yeah. So welcome everybody, and welcome Dr. Lois Itiene to introduce the speaker, and then we meet in 40 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. Thank you, everyone, for attending this grand round this afternoon, and welcome. So today we are privileged to have Keshava Swami, who will be speaking to us, who is a monk. He's a teacher and author, and he'll be speaking to us this afternoon on AI and spirituality. So I know the topic already had elicited some mixed reactions, and today I think we'll get to hear where does science and spirituality meet, if at all they meet, and where do they diverge. So without much ado, I would like to welcome our speaker for the day. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Yes. Thank you so much for your kind introduction, and thank you everyone for coming. My name is Keshava Swami. I was born in London. My parents are from India. My mother's from East Africa, from Tanzania, Dar es Salaam. And we're just traveling through Nairobi and Kenya at the moment, and happy to be with you all this afternoon. So I'll try to share some thoughts that we've been traveling around corporate firms, universities, non-governmental organizations, and just sharing these thoughts as AI is such a big thing in the world today. If it's possible, I could get rights to share my screen just so I can share some slides. And what I'll be doing is I'll probably speak for about 30 to 40 minutes. And then I'll be happy to take any responses from any of you, your thoughts, your comments, your reflections, perhaps your questions on AI, humanity, spirituality, and how it really relates to us in the world we're living in today. So yeah, is it possible to get sharing rights for my screen? Then I can kind of proceed.
ICT, kindly can we make a Keshava co-host so that he can share his screen?
Okay, wonderful. All right, so our topic for today is AI, technology, humanity, and spirituality. I thought when I was preparing this presentation, I thought I'd begin by going onto an AI platform and typing in, can you give me a meme on AI and what it means today? And when I asked the AI generator to do that, this is what it came up with. AI means artificial intelligence, or in practicality, actually incomprehensible. And that probably is quite accurate coming from AI itself. That AI is such a fast-moving, developing, evolving technology in today's day and age. It almost seems with every week and every month, there are newer and newer insights and abilities that AI is presenting to us all in the world today in order to complete our daily tasks and move forward in whatever we're trying to achieve. In fact, the rate of change of AI has been so great that some of the most prominent innovators behind AI themselves had come together in 2023. Elon Musk, Wozniak, and others had come together and suggested that we actually slow down the development of AI and really think about what goes on around AI, the ethics, the humanity, the utilization, the safety controls, to ensure that as this powerful technology develops, that we ensure we utilize it in such a way that our lives become of a better quality, and that we don't actually create something which ultimately ends up being detrimental to our progressive living in this world. And today I'm going to be kind of building on some of those points of what we want to consider to ensure that it leads to a better quality of life. Some of the technologies of AI, just to kind of refresh your memory, I'm sure all of you are interfacing with these technologies every day. One of the main aspects that AI is giving us are virtual agents. So many of the tasks that we would previously refer to humans for, whether it be planning an appointment or making a booking or asking a question or seeking assistance for something or even for advice, the virtual chatbots and virtual agents through artificial intelligence that have been fed with all the data required to actually respond to whatever you require. Another AI technology that many of you may have experienced is AI in transport. So this is an example of a self-driven car. And now in parts of the world, we're kind of seeing how driverless cars are becoming more and more prominent. And in this way, transport and the way we move from one place to another is actually changing. Of course, all of you are familiar with ChatGPT, the conversational platform whereby you can give text prompts, and ChatGPT can kind of almost at an unimaginable rate flick through so much data and actually provide relevant, powerful, stimulating, and insightful responses. So ChatGPT is being used across the board, and also being used in creative spaces as well to produce things like poetry or scripts or essays or other such things. AI is also being used in music. This is something called Sound Raw. I don't know, some of you may have experienced it, but it's an artificial intelligence music platform whereby you can make certain requests of instruments, of lyrics, of a particular genre or mood. And based on all your requirements, the artificial intelligence of Sound Raw can actually come up with a tailor-made song which fits all of your criteria. And this is another AI technology called deep nostalgia. And in this AI technology, you can actually put in the photos of your ancestors, people who were very dear and near to you, who have maybe passed away from this world. And you put them into the AI generation of deep nostalgia, and they can be animated, they can speak to you, they can almost interact with you. And so this is also another technology, and many, many more things. It's developing at an exponential rate. So then the question is, naturally, AI is impacting every single aspect of our life, from the way we learn things, to the way we relate to people, to the way we solve our physical and mental problems, to our career. And the question is it good or is it bad? What is the impact of AI? We can definitely say that there are huge advantages of us are experiencing on a day-to-day level. For example, in education now, instead of having to follow a kind of set education that is prescribed across the board, through AI technologies, people are actually utilizing the opportunity to understand what are their strengths, what are their cognitive abilities, in what areas they're gifted, in what areas they need real improvement. And therefore, AI is helping them to create a personalized study program whereby we can maximize our learning. is very beautiful, very amazing. AI allows in health for better diagnosis. AI can kind of sift through more data from our background, from our present situation, looking at our habits, our lifestyle, and factoring in much, much more information to actually give us a better diagnosis about what may be physically wrong with us and how we can actually improve. All of you are in the health sector, you know about some of these technologies. And AI is also helping with creativity at work, finding newer ways to do things, finding more effective ways to actually complete tasks and remove repetitive and taxing tasks from the human being. But then we also have to admit that AI has its own challenges. One of the facts that people are fearing about AI today is the loss of jobs. AI seems to skill people. It makes certain occupations and certain careers somewhat redundant because they can actually be automated and completed much quicker, much more efficiently, much more reliably, and more importantly, much more cheaply through technology. And therefore, there's a real sense that people's jobs, people's livelihoods are at risk. Of course, with AI and the increasing amount of data and reliance and emphasis on the online electronic world, there's greater risks of privacy and security. Warfare, cybersecurity is such a huge thing now. And it seems as though the electronic world is the new battlefield, because that's where so much cyber crime is taking place, impersonation and other things. And then there's a human aspect to AI, which is very worrying as well. And one of the examples of that is over-reliance on technology. Nowadays, rather than utilizing our cognitive abilities to process information and exercise our intelligence, we just by default lending those tasks to AI, which is very good because it helps us to get things done quickly. But maybe that lack of exercise and utilization of our own intelligence, our own thinking, means that we're actually diminishing our own capacity. And so these are, you can see some of the positives and negatives of AI, some of the hopes and opportunities, and some of the fears and the threats that come with AI. And therefore, the natural question on people's minds is, will AI improve the quality of our life? That's almost like the golden $64 million question. And if some of you want to share your insights on the chat as we go through this, please feel free, feel welcome to do that. From the spiritual perspective, I'd like to share some ideas with you about how we approach AI from the spiritual perspective. And I'll begin by telling you a story of 4 people who checked into the New York Hilton, and they had very luckily obtained the penthouse suite on the 80th floor of the Hilton Hotel, and they checked into their room. And as they checked into their room, they left together, 4 of them, for a night out in the city that never sleeps. They went to some pubs, they went to some clubs, they had something to eat. Overall, they had a great time. And when they came back to the hotel and they entered into the reception area, they had the shock of their life, because as they walked up to the lift, the elevator, they saw a sign, and the sign said, "Lift out of order." Now, when you're on the 80th floor and the lift's out of order, that's a bit of a problem. But they were so tired and at the same time so desirous to get into their room that they decided, we have to bite the bullet and we have to climb the stairs. And so they began climbing the stairs, 1 flight at a time. And in order to make the journey up those 80 floors, less painful, they decided to tell each other stories. They got to the 70th floor and they noticed that one of the four hadn't told any stories yet. And so they looked at him and they said, "Why don't you tell a story? You haven't told any stories yet." And he said, "My story is tragic. You don't want to hear my story." But they encouraged him, "No, tell us your story." And his story was that they were on the 80th floor. They were looking to get to their room and they had reached the 70th floor. And he said, "My tragic story is we're 10 floors away from the room that we're meant to check into, but we forgot the key at reception." And in that moment, everyone's heart sunk. Now, we tell this story to people to share that sometimes we're climbing. Sometimes we're going higher and higher. Sometimes we're reaching greater and greater progression in technology, in economy, in social infrastructure, in so many different things. We're increasing. Yet despite going higher and higher and developing more and more and evolving in a more and more complicated way, perhaps we forgot the key on the ground floor. Because unless there's other things around technological and economic improvement, we may be going higher and higher, but we're not necessarily going to find the well-being and happiness that we look for. A thought exercise that we often do with people is we ask them, "Do you think the world was better 100 years ago, or do you think the world was better now? Would you rather your children were growing up in the world of 100 years ago, or that your children were growing up in the world of today?" As you contemplate that question, I'll just share with you. 100 years ago, the three main problems in schools were: number one, talking in class; number two, cheating in an exam; and number three, chewing gum under the table. Now, you may or may not be shocked to hear that the three biggest problems in schools today are: number one, gun crime; number two, teenage pregnancy; and number three, physical attacks and assaults on the teachers. I ask you the question again. Would you rather your children were growing up in the world of 100 years ago or the world of today? With all our economic and technological advancement, are we actually crafting a better world? Are we actually becoming happier? What was mental and physical health like 100 years ago? And what is mental and physical health like now? These are the hard questions we have to ask ourselves. Coming from a spiritual perspective, what we share with the world is that science and spirituality, science and the humanity that comes from spirituality have to go together. We tell people science teaches you about matter, but spirituality teaches you what matters. Science teaches you how to do things better, but spirituality teaches you how to do better things. Science can improve things, but spirituality improves people. And so what we're suggesting today is not that AI is bad, is not that we have to stop or turn away or shun technology, but rather we have to ensure that we put an emphasis on developing humanity and spirituality around technology. Otherwise, that same technology that we deem to be the hallmark of an advancing society might be the very thing which causes society to sink. AI, in all its complicated development is very, very different from consciousness. The first thing that we're taught in spirituality is that we live in two worlds. One world is the world of matter and energy. And that's the world that technology deals with. But there's another world that we live in, which is the world of consciousness and perception. And that is the world that spirituality deals with. If we only deal with one world, the technological world of matter and energy, but we neglect the spiritual world of consciousness and perception, then we're going to end up with an imbalanced society. This is John Searle from the University of California, Berkeley. He says, you can expand the power all you want, hooking up as many computers as you think you need, and they still won't be conscious, because all they'll ever do is shuffle symbols. As complicated and as advanced as AI is becoming, AI is not conscious. In fact, consciousness is mysterious. Where consciousness comes from, where perception arises from, what is that person who is feeling the emotions behind all the neural processing that's going on, that is mysterious. AI can never work without consciousness, without a conscious entity. Because in AI, we still face dependability. No matter how much you create complication or advancement in AI technology, it still depends on humans feeding in data, on humans sifting and fact-checking data, on humans doing some level of regulation and utilization of that technology. AI, as advanced as it becomes, doesn't have the adaptability of human consciousness. Although AI is becoming more advanced, when it's faced with unpredictable situations, it cannot be flexible and responsive like human consciousness. AI, though it can do a lot of data processing and analytical shuffling, it lacks emotionality. There's no feeling, there's no humanness behind it in that sense. And this also leads to the fact that AI is not inbuilt with morality. AI doesn't have a moral compass by which, when it produces information or outputs to the world, it cannot shift and shuffle between different principles of morality. And AI lacks individuality. The human individual, the human consciousness has a unique individuality which provides for the variety we see in the creation. And therefore, we can see that while AI is very advanced, AI is not conscious. AI doesn't replace consciousness, but rather the consciousness behind AI has to be developed in order to utilize that AI in the right way. And therefore, along with developing an understanding of AI, what the world really needs today is to develop an understanding of the consciousness that AI is founded upon. What is consciousness? And where does consciousness come from? Once we understand and grasp and embrace the reality of consciousness, and we start to deal with this aspect of the world, then we can actually utilize everything else in the world of technology, matter, and energy in a much more powerful way. Today, I want to share with you an insight in consciousness that's given in the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is an ancient Sanskrit book, perhaps the most famous of spiritual books in the whole of South of Asia. It was read by Gandhi, it was read by Einstein, by Nelson Mandela, in more contemporary times, Will Smith and Steve Jobs and so many others have read the Bhagavad Gita. And it's really been an inspiration to thinkers, to scientists, to spiritualists, to seekers over all generations. And the Bhagavad Gita is a spiritual book which really begins with the question of consciousness. Where does consciousness come from? And how do the other aspects of our being relate to consciousness? So this is a very famous verse from the Bhagavad Gita. I'll recite it in Sanskrit just to give you a sense of how Sanskrit sounds. Indriyani paranyahur indriyebhya param manaha manasastu para buddhir yo buddhe paratastu saha. So here, the Bhagavad Gita actually gives a hierarchy. The Bhagavad Gita says the working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. And the soul or consciousness is even higher than the intelligence. So this is very, very profound. In a hierarchy, basically, what it's saying is that there is dull matter. And then higher than dull matter, there are our senses, our power to see, to hear, to smell, to taste, and to touch. But then higher than those senses is the mind. The mind is almost the control center, which then dictates the senses to move in different directions. But then higher than the mind is the intelligence, which guides the mind on how to utilize the senses. Then higher than the mind, higher than the intelligence, sorry, is the consciousness. And this insight will give people an amazing understanding of how to deal with artificial intelligence. Most people are fearful that artificial intelligence will replace the human because they see intelligence as the highest element in the hierarchy. Yet the Bhagavad Gita and all spiritual traditions, for that matter, tell us that above the intelligence, there is the conscious self, what we talk about here as the soul. And when we start to energize, empower, enliven, and engage on the level of the soul, the consciousness, then we can utilize the intelligence and even the artificial intelligence appropriately. So this is the commentary by Bhaktivedanta Swami. In the Katha Upanishad, the soul has been described as Mahan, the great. Therefore, the soul is above all, namely the sense objects, the senses, the mind, and the intelligence. Therefore, directly understanding the constitutional position of the soul is the solution of the whole problem. The basic problem of the world today is that people are trying to increase their intellect through the artificial intellect, AI. Yet what they're doing is they're developing their intellect, but they're not simultaneously developing their consciousness and the humanity that goes with that consciousness. And therefore, intelligence may be advancing, but consciousness, spirituality, and humanity is not advancing. And therefore, when intelligence increases, but consciousness, spirituality, and humanity doesn't increase, then it leads to an imbalance. And that imbalance means that all of these things that are at our disposal are not utilized appropriately. This is the metaphor that's given. The senses are compared to 5 horses. The reins are compared to the mind. The driver is compared to the intelligence, but the passenger is compared to the soul or the consciousness or the awareness or the conscience behind it all. And what's happened in the world today is that this chariot is being led by the horses. The horses are out of control. The reins are basically being dragged by the horses. The driver can't control anything, and the passenger is basically mute and asleep and disempowered. Yeah, if we want humanity and the world and our own lives to go in a progressive direction, it means awakening that consciousness. Are held on to. And when the reins are controlled, then naturally the horses are controlled. And this is the challenge for the world today. And so what we're proposing to the world is that AI, in order to be utilized appropriately, must be combined with EI, emotional intelligence. And that emotional intelligence is founded upon SI, spiritual intelligence. Artificial intelligence without emotional intelligence and spiritual intelligence will not lead to a happier or a healthier world. In other words, we tell people we should increase our IQ, but we should also increase our EQ, and we should also increase our SQ. Our IQ helps us in answering the questions of what. Our EQ helps us in answering the questions of how. But our SQ helps us in answering the questions of why. We must start with why. When we don't start with why, and when we're led just by getting things done, remember, science can teach you how to do things better, but spirituality teaches you to do better things. AI only deals with the success-seeking part of our being because it's all about achievement. EI deals with a bigger part of our being, which is our social being and how we relate and interact with others. But SQ deals with our spiritual being, our deeper sense of consciousness. And therefore, what we're sharing with people as we travel across the world is that technology and technological development is good, but technology must be accompanied by humanity. And the deepest humanity comes when we develop our spirituality. And this is the full equation. If we simply advance in AI, but we don't develop EI and SI, EQ and SQ, then what we'll find is that AI could actually lead to many, many problems, many, many difficulties, and could regress our generation in actually finding the happiness that we are seeking. So thank you very much for your time, for your attention. I hope some of those points resonated with you. And perhaps if anyone has any questions or comments, then I'm happy. Perhaps you can put your hands up using the reactions tab, or perhaps you can type your questions in the chat. And very happy to hear from all of you. Yes, happy to take.
We can take questions or any reactions for that matter.
Hello?
Yes, please go ahead,
Yes,
Professor.
Prof.
Oh, thank you very much. You are a monk, Swami. I think we have met
Yes.
before. You have given us a talk one time in the School of Medicine. And
Oh,
very
yes,
much.
I was happy to be there last year. Yes, of course.
And I think what you have said cannot be questioned. It needs time to be understood. But one area I just wanted to find a way to link humanity, spirituality, and artificial intelligence through electromagnetism. There are some people who think that when you hold certain beliefs on your mind, then you change the magnetic field around you, and it coordinates well with the magnetic field that has similar behavior, similar beliefs in another person. So that actually what you are discussing today about spirituality could as well be electromagnetism. And what matters is the charge as determined by beliefs. I don't know what you want to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this comment. Yes, as time goes by and as science advances and as science is able to open its mind to looking at more subtle aspects of the world around us, then we realize that the gross aspects of the world and the more subtle aspects of the world are actually intimately connected. Even in things like quantum mechanics and so on and so forth, there's a sense in how the conscious observer and the more subtle aspects of our being can actually have an effect on the physical world. Sometimes we say consciousness creates a reality. So sometimes the more spiritual and subtle aspects are actually moving different aspects of the material nature as we know it. And so, yes, this is a point very, very well taken, that technology and the gross physical aspects are very much connected to the more subtle and spiritual aspects of humanity and spirituality. And in that way, we can see that all of them can be synergized. What we're often seeing, Professor, in the world today is that people are drawing an aggressive demarcation between science and spirituality. And what they're saying is that science deals with facts, with experiments, with empiric evidence, and spirituality is a different realm of knowledge dealing with faith, religion, belief, and so on. But in our concept, spirituality and science can actually be synthesized and can actually work very, very much together. It's actually that they complement each other. One scientist, he says, science and spirituality are opposed in the sense that my thumb and my forefinger are opposed. That opposition allows me to grasp something. And so we can see that science and spirituality and their varying insights actually complement each other. So thank you very much for that reflection. Really appreciate it.
Let me ask you a question, please. What's the difference between science and spirituality, and then science and religion? Because I'd like to know the difference between the two.
Okay, so essentially you're asking what's the difference between spirituality and religion?
Yes.
Yes, this is a very good question. Of course, they're both, if we look in their essence, religion and spirituality are trying to achieve the same thing. Religion comes from the etymology ligare. Ri means again, and ligare means to connect. So the essence of religion is to connect with the spiritual reality. Spirituality means to explore beyond the material world into the other reality. So in reality, religion and spirituality are actually aiming at the same thing. They're aiming at helping us connect to something beyond just the physical world of matter and energy. However, today, religion has become more about institution, whereas spirituality has become more about one's individual adventure into the unknown. Religion has become more about faith, whereas spirituality is seen to be something that is experience. Religion is seen to be something that causes friction and social problems, but spirituality is seen to be a uniting force by which we see the deeper unity between us. And therefore, nowadays, people are seeming to drift away from religion and seeking to be more spiritual. But from our perspective, if someone is actually a religious person, then they will be the deepest spiritualist. And the deepest spiritualists are happy to use religious teachings in order to acquire the experience that they're looking for. So in that way, we can say science and spirituality and religion, in one sense, they're one. But in another sense, how they're employed in the world today are in very different ways.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, if there is anyone else who has a question or...
So I think there's one question in the chat
Mhm.
from Vivian. Thanks for the interesting talk. Is there a way of slowing then AI in the current society versus spirituality?
Yeah, as I mentioned, Elon Musk, the co-founder of Apple, Wozniak, other members of Google and other technology innovators, they actually in May of 2023, they wrote a letter in which they suggested that we should actually slow down the development of AI. Now, I don't know to what extent that's had an effect on AI development, but it seems to me that now this technology is in motion. I don't know how much it can be stopped. It just seems to be moving at an exponential rate. And what I would say is that if we don't have much control over that, which it seems perhaps we don't, then what we should do in order to counterbalance the equation is put more and more emphasis on spirituality, on humanity, on developing the morals, the ethics, and the human compass that should lead AI in the right direction. And this is the challenge, I think. And therefore, you know, having a session like this afternoon, where all of us can consider what are we doing to help people develop their spirituality and their humanity. We need to have specific projects, programs, processes, and a plan to develop spirituality and humanity. Otherwise, it seems that technology is on its move, developing, and we can't do much about that. But we can balance it and regulate it through humanity and spirituality.
Okay, there are still more questions in the chat. From Edward Ouma. Thank you, Swami, for the great presentation. Spirituality can take different meaning depending on generations, stroke background. Can it be said technology, that's AI, could be in essence part of spiritual reality in the current context or generation?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, there's so much different definitions of spirituality. Some see spirituality as something very religious. Some see spirituality as something of the occult, something very alternative and new age. Some people see spirituality just in their daily functioning. For example, doing things consciously, they believe to be spirituality. I think whichever of those definitions you use, if we try to develop spirituality in the sense that we try to develop greater morality, greater ethics, greater orientation of what we're actually trying to use this technology for, where are we trying to go? What are we trying to achieve? How are we going to achieve it? In what way are we going to ensure that it's done appropriately without harming the world? I think these are some of the things that we have to look at in spirituality. So yes, I agree with you. There are a variety of definitions of what spirituality could be, but let us build spirituality into artificial intelligence by very much looking at the qualitative aspect. Number one, what are we using that artificial intelligence to ultimately aim for? And in what way are we utilizing that artificial intelligence so that it doesn't become destructive or limiting to the human experience? Hope that helps.
Okay, and I think this should be the last question. Could the relationship between God and humans be similar to that of humans and AI? And can it guide us to know how to relate with our Creator?
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, the key difference between those things is we would say God is sentient, is conscious, and human beings are conscious. So therefore, the God-human relationship is a relationship between two conscious entities. However, humans and AI mean a relationship between a conscious entity and an unconscious entity. It doesn't matter how human-like AI may seem to be, as is written by someone on the chat, AI lacks the aspect of will, of cognition, of sentience, and therefore AI can never be conscious. Yeah, someone's verified that. So in that sense, the relationship between human and AI is the relationship between a conscious and an unconscious entity. And therefore, humans have great potential to utilize AI in the appropriate way, but it means an awakening of spirituality, an awakening of their humanity, an awakening of a more subtle aspect of their being beyond just the intelligence. And this is the aim of all spiritual traditions, to help us achieve this development of the human and the spiritual potential. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Swami. One more question in the chat. Are there any validated tools to measure spirituality?
Yeah. Yes. Let me hear from them.
Okay, wonderful. That's a wonderful question. Are there any tools to actually measure spirituality? Because often spirituality is a very subjective thing. How do we actually call spirituality science? Then there must be some objective measure of how someone is developing spiritually. So in ancient scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita, there are given many, many clear parameters by which we can understand that someone is developing their spirituality. And I'll share a few of them with you. One parameter that someone's developing their spirituality is that their divine, their saintly qualities increase, and the negative, limiting qualities decrease. As we develop our spirituality, tolerance, kindness, compassion, empathy increase. Envy, greed, anger, harshness, these things decrease. That's a parameter of increasing spirituality. Another parameter of increasing spirituality is that one increases in spiritual desire to serve others. Whereas when spirituality is lacking, then one increases in a desire to selfishly exploit everyone and everything around them for their own gratification. In other words, the second major parameter and measure of spirituality is that one becomes more selfless and less selfish. Another aspect of increasing spirituality is one's ability to connect, relate, and interact with all living beings, including the earth, in a more compassionate, kind, and loving way. Whereas when spirituality is absent, then what we'll find is that people increasingly interact and relate to other living beings, animals, and Mother Nature in a more exploitative and a more violent and aggressive way. And so here we can just see from the Bhagavad Gita 3 very clear parameters by which you can understand that someone is becoming more spiritual. It's not simply an affiliation that I am part of X religion or Y spiritual group that makes me a spiritual person. Number one, are you increasing your spiritual character? And number three, are you increasing the spiritual quality with which you interact with everyone and everything around you? If you can say yes to all three of those things, then you can understand someone's spirituality is actually increasing. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Swami. I think
Yes.
I don't know whether anyone else still has a question. I think someone just unmuted. Emily Choge, do you have a question?
Maybe a comment.
Please
Yes,
proceed.
please.
Yeah, maybe we could add more measures of spirituality from the Christian tradition, and one that is actually present in all the religious traditions is doing to others what you would like to be done to you. So if one is conscious about that, and that is it comes from the Sermon on the Mount, that is in Matthew, and it says, "Do to others," chapter 7, yeah, "do to others what you'd like to be done to you." So, and there are other measures of spirituality from Christianity, and yeah, it's that growing in caring for others, showing love and patience and kindness. That's what is called the fruit of the Spirit. A spiritual person would be showing those kinds of qualities in Galatians chapter 5, verses 22. Yeah. So there are many measures of spirituality that could be drawn from various religious traditions.
Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you for
Thank
adding
you.
that sensitivity. Thank you.
Okay, I think we are at the top of the hour, so probably we'll take one more question, which is in the chats, and then we will close. We'll hand over to Matthew Koech. So the question is, what is the future of spirituality and AI?
We hope the future is bright. We hope the future is positive, and we hope the future will bring increasing well-being on a physical, mental, and spiritual platform. Martin Luther King once said, "We now have guided missiles, but we have misguided men." And really, our opportunity together to talk about these topics and raise awareness, I think, is a huge step forward. And in our educational institutions, in our various arenas in which we function, if we have increasing programs to allow people to awaken their spirituality in a scientific way and expand their humanity, then I think the future will be very, very bright. So it's been my pleasure to be with all of you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And we look forward to connecting with you in person soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Swami. It's been a pleasure listening to you. And I'm informed by Professor Patel that you'll be in College of Health Sciences on 6th March at 3 p.m. in the MEC building, talking on the purpose of life amidst chaos. So much welcome to the School of Medicine. And I don't know whether Matthew Koech is in so that he can help us close the session for today. Thank you so much, everyone. It's been an interesting afternoon, an interesting chat. Learned a lot from Swami. I think my take-home message today is, let's be compassionate, kind, and loving to the world around us amidst AI and everything else. Thank you very much. Welcome, Matthew.
Yeah, Lois, you start by being kind to me. Thank you. So it's been a good afternoon. We've had plenty of discussions. We'd like to thank Swami and Lois for the wonderful talk. And we'd like to thank all of you also for coming to share with us the knowledge. And we appreciate you being here, and we don't take it for granted that you took an hour of your time to join us in our grand rounds and in these interesting discussions. So I would just like to ask the Dean or the Associate Dean to give closing remarks and to officially thank the speaker, and then we call it a day. But maybe before that, Dean, I think one of the student reps is here. Is Ciro or Koga or Immaculate here to give a short comment?
Good afternoon, Dr. Matthew.
Yes, Norbert.
Okay, this is Dr. Norbert Ciro. I think we are so much grateful to Swami for giving us this talk. This has been a very interesting topic. And when we shared, you can see the attendance has been very good today, meaning people are eager to learn this new area of knowledge. And we are very much grateful. You have learned a lot. And we hope we'll interact again so that we can be able to understand more in this area of spirituality. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you, Norbert. Dean?
Thank you so much, Dr. Matthew. May I take this chance to thank Monk Swami for that inspiring lecture on AI and spirituality. It was quite inspiring, and we're looking forward to further interaction very soon at the College of Sciences or School of Medicine. So thank you so much, and we look forward again to listening to your inspiring lecture soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Swami. Bye-bye, everyone. See you next week on Thursday.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you and bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.